This is overload. This is about inclusivity overload, about forced DEI, which we know is an absolute failure, and it's just another thing that's distracting from the purpose of our public school system. This segment is brought to you by Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Some patients like me can lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. Some of the terrible bills that were discussed, some of them passed this legislative session. Now the governor's putting pen to paper, and so there's another opportunity to remind you about them and to talk about them, and one of them is Senate Bill 5462, which, if you'll recall, will mandate Seattle-like inclusive learning standards for every school district in the state. Here's Governor Jay Inslee signing Senate Bill 5462 into law.
This is Senate Bill 5462. It directs the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction to screen for biases in learning standards. The bill also directs the School Directors Association to establish a model policy requiring schools include the perspectives of historically marginalized or underrepresented groups. It aligns with our diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and will help make more students feel welcome at school. Thanks, Senator Elias, and all who worked on this.
I'm glad he mentioned Senator Elias, even though Senator Elias wasn't there. Yeah, thanks, Senator Elias, for thrusting your personal ideology onto school districts across the state. That's really what this is about. You know, when they have the headlines, oh, this will help make schools and curriculum more inclusive. Well, that sounds great. Who's going to push back against making our schools more inclusive? But that's not what this is about. This is about, and I'll just read from a portion of the bill that I pulled. It's about creating a model policy and procedure that requires school district board of directors to adopt inclusive curricula and select so many woke words. Diverse, equitable, inclusive, age-appropriate instructional materials that include the histories, contributions, and perspectives of historically marginalized and underrepresented groups, including but not limited to people from various racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds, people with different learning needs, people with disabilities, LGBTQ people, and people with various socioeconomic and immigration backgrounds. So this is overload. This is about inclusivity overload, about forced DEI, which we know is an absolute failure, and it's just another thing that's distracting from the purpose of our public school system. I've said it before. If everything was going great in our public school system, the grades and test scores were high, and you want to focus on some other things to make it more well-rounded, whatever, but that's not the case. We know that across the board, our test scores are in the toilet. The number of kids who are coming to school on a regular basis in terms of attendance is in the toilet. We spend like $18,000 per pupil. And instead of focusing this legislative session on, hey, how can we improve educational and academic outcomes for our kids, they're focusing on stuff like this in a bill to make it harder for parents to object to certain books that their kids are taught in school. So that's the kind of stuff that just speaks to the failure of one-party rule and of our government. But this is going to, we've already seen, again, it sounds harmless to say, oh, more inclusive learning material. But how many stories have we done on material that was maybe chosen for its inclusive nature that was deeply mortifying? They mention here, curricula that talks about immigrant backgrounds. Remember the book that was read to 10th graders at a Seattle school that was about a mom from Africa who'd immigrated to the country with her daughter, and her daughter, was making out with some boy on the couch, and as a punishment, her mom makes her undress from the waist down and get on her bed and spread her legs and threatens to shove a hot pepper up her hoo-ha? And they picked that because it was like part of some cultural. It's like, okay, first of all, that's a weird cultural example to give for African immigrants. And does it have to be sexually explicit? So you want to talk about different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, immigrants and stuff. That's fine. I have no issue with that. But why are you choosing books that are grotesque and perverse? So that's the concern here. And when it comes to the LGBTQ community, you'll remember the committee hearing. This kind of went viral after we posted it, with a Republican lawmaker being like, that's cool, have your diverse books. Can we just agree that none of them are pornographic in nature? And the Democrat on the committee was like, nah, we're not going to vote for that. I was like, we can't vote that, hey, you can have your inclusive material, but it just can't be porn? because he gave an example of a book called Jack of Hearts, where it's about a boy who's gay and has a really active sex life and is being attacked for his sex life, but he likes sex so much, and it's just about sex. That's what the whole book is about, sex, 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 sex. So it's like, you guys, you want to be inclusive, but for some reason, as you pick these books and learning material for underrepresented groups, you pick stuff that's not by any measure age appropriate. So even though you put age appropriate in the bill, the stuff you're already doing isn't age appropriate. And also, this is now putting local school districts even more under the thumb of the superintendent of public instruction, Kruse, who, do you think he's been on this show? Did he push back against some of this crazy gender ideology and political ideology being pushed on kids? No, he just punted on those questions. So the idea that you're going to put age-appropriate things, it's ridiculous because we already know. And you're focusing on the wrong thing, and that is the overarching issue.